is this House to now adjourn. The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is right that at this time of grave concern over the Falkland Islands and their people, that Parliament should be recalled so that the Government may report and the House may discuss the latest developments. Our objective, endorsed by all sides of the House in recent debates, is that the people of the Falkland Islands shall be free to determine their own way of life and their own future. The wishes of the islanders must be paramount, but they cannot be freely expressed, let alone implemented, while the present illegal Argentine occupation continues. That is why our immediate goal in recent days has been to secure the withdrawal of all Argentine forces in accordance with Resolution 502 of the United Nations Security Council, and to secure the restoration of British administration. Our strategy has been based on a combination of diplomatic, military, and economic pressures, and I would like to deal with each of these in turn. First of all, Mr. Speaker, we seek a peaceful solution by diplomatic effort. This, too, is in accordance with the Security Council resolution. In this approach, we have been helped by the widespread disapproval of the use of force which the Argentine aggression has aroused across the world, and also by the tireless efforts of Secretary of State Haig, who has now paid 2 visits to this country and 1 to Buenos Aires. On his first visit last Thursday, we impressed upon him the great depth of feeling on this issue, not only of Parliament, but of the British people as a whole. We may not express our views in the same way as the masses gathered in Buenos Aires, but we feel them every bit as strongly. Indeed, even more profoundly, because Britons are involved. We made clear to Mr. Haig that withdrawal of the invaders' troops must come first, that the sovereignty of the islands is not affected by the act of invasion, and that when it comes to future negotiations, what matters most is what the Falkland Islanders themselves wish. On his second visit on Easter Monday and yesterday, Mr. Haig put forward certain ideas as a basis for discussion, ideas concerning the withdrawal of troops and its supervision, and an interim period during which negotiations on the future of the islands would be conducted. Our talks were long and detailed, as the House would expect. Some things which we could not consider because they flouted our basic principles. Others we had to examine carefully and suggest alternatives. The talks were constructive and some progress was made. At the end of Monday, Mr. Haig was prepared to return to Buenos Aires in pursuit of a peaceful solution. However, Argentina, late that night, put forward to him other proposals which we could not possibly have accepted. But yesterday, the position appeared to have eased. Further ideas are now being considered, and Secretary Haig has returned to Washington before proceeding, he hopes shortly, to Buenos Aires. Mr. Speaker, that meeting, in our view, will be crucial. These discussions are complex, changing, and difficult. The more so because they are taking place between a military junta and a democratic government of a free people, and one which is not prepared to compromise that democracy and that liberty which the British Falkland Islanders regard as their birthright. We seek and shall continue to seek a diplomatic solution, and the House will realize that it would jeopardize that aim were I to give further details at this stage. Indeed, Secretary Haig has been scrupulous in his adherence to confidentiality in pursuit of the larger objective. We shall continue genuinely to negotiate through the good offices of Mr. Haig, to whose skill and perseverance I pay warm tribute. Mr. Speaker, diplomatic efforts are more likely to succeed if they are backed by military strength. At 5 a.m. London time on Monday the 12th of April, the maritime exclusion zone of 200 miles around the Falkland Islands came into effect. From that time, any Argentine warships and Argentine naval auxiliaries found within this zone are treated as hostile and are liable to be attacked by British forces. We see this measure as the first step towards achieving the withdrawal of Argentine forces. It appears to have exerted influence on Argentina, whose navy has been concentrated outside the zone. If the zone is challenged, we shall take that as the clearest evidence that the search for a peaceful solution has been abandoned. We shall then take the necessary action. Let no one doubt that. The Naval Task Force is proceeding with all speed towards the South Atlantic. It's a formidable force comprising 2 aircraft carriers, 5 guided missile destroyers, 7 frigates, an assault ship with 5 landing ships, together with supporting vessels. The composition of the force and the speed with which it was assembled and put to sea clearly demonstrate our determination. Morale on board the ships in the task force is very high. The ships and aircraft are carrying out exercises on passage, and by the time the force arrives off the Falklands, it will be at a very high state of fighting efficiency.
Mr. Prime Minister. That if it arrives off the Falklands, that there is sufficient air cover against a land-based air force from the Argentines.
Mr. Speaker, I will have something to say about air cover in a moment. May I say that I have every confidence in all aspects of this task force. A number of civilian ships have now been chartered or requisitioned. These include the Canberra for use as a troop ship and the Uganda, which will be available as a hospital ship. Recourse to the merchant marine is traditional in time of naval emergency, and their response has been wholehearted on this occasion as in the past. Men and equipment continue to be flown out to Ascension Island to meet up with the task force. These additional elements will enhance the fighting capability of the force and the range of operations which can be undertaken. Nimrod maritime patrol aircraft are now patrolling the South Atlantic in support of our fleet. Sustaining a substantial force 8,000 miles from the United Kingdom is a considerable undertaking. As the Ministry of Defence announced this morning, additional measures are now in hand to provide extra capability for the force over an extended period. In particular, the second assault ship, HMS Intrepid, is being recommissioned for operational service. She will significantly add to the amphibious capability of the task force now entering the South Atlantic, which already contains her sister ship, HMS Fearless. Arrangements are in hand to adapt a large cargo ship for the sea lift of additional Harriers. This will nearly double the size of the Harrier force in the South Atlantic. All these aircraft have a formidable air combat and ground attack capability. Our diplomacy, Mr. Speaker, is backed by strength, and we have the resolve to use that strength if necessary. The third aspect of our pressure against Argentina has been economic. We've been urging our friends and allies to take action parallel to our own, and we have achieved a heartening degree of success. The most significant measure has been the decision of our 9 partners in the European community to join us, not just in an arms embargo, but also in stopping all imports from Argentina. This is a very important step, unprecedented in its scope and the rapidity of the decision. Last year, about a quarter of all Argentina's exports went to the European community. The effect on Argentina's economy of this measure will therefore be considerable, and it cannot be without influence on her leaders in the present crisis. And I should like warmly to thank our European partners for rallying to our support. It was an effective demonstration of community solidarity. The decision can't have been easy for our partners given the commercial interests at stake. But they were the first to realize that if aggression were allowed to succeed in the Falkland Islands, it would be encouraged the world over. Other friends too have been quick to help. And I should like to thank Australia, New Zealand and Canada for their sturdy and swift action. They have decided to ban imports from Argentina, to stop export credits and to halt all sales of military equipment. New Zealand has also banned exports to Argentina. We are grateful also to many other countries in the Commonwealth who've supported us by condemning the Argentine invasion. Mr. Speaker, what have the Argentines been able to produce to balance this solidarity in support of our cause? Some Latin American countries have, of course, repeated their support for the Argentine claim to sovereignty. We always knew they would. But only one of them has supported the Argentine invasion, and nearly all have made clear their distaste and disapproval that Argentina should have resorted to aggression. Almost the only country whose position has been shifting towards Argentina is the Soviet Union. We can only guess at the cynical calculations which lie behind this move. But Soviet support for Argentina is hardly likely to shake the world's confidence in the justice of our cause, and it will not alter our determination to achieve our objectives. Mr. Speaker, one of our first concerns has been and remains the safety of the British subjects who have been caught up in the consequences of the crisis. They include, apart from the Falkland Islanders themselves, the Marines and the British Antarctic Survey scientists on South Georgia and the British community in Argentina. In spite of all our efforts, we've not been able to secure reliable information about the 22 Marines who are on South Georgia and the 13 British Antarctic Survey personnel who are believed to have been evacuated from Grytviken at the same time. According to Argentine reports, these people are on a ship heading for the mainland. There are also reports that the 6 Marines and the 1 member of the crew of Endurance who were captured on the Falkland Islands are now in Argentina. Finally, there are 13 members of the British Antarctic Survey team and 2 other British subjects who remain on South Georgia. The survey team's most recent contacts on the 12th of April with their headquarters in this country indicate that they are safe and well. On the 5th of April, we asked the Swiss government, as the protecting power, to pursue all these cases urgently with the Argentine government. We trust their efforts will soon produce the information which we and their families so anxiously seek. On the same day, we also sought the assistance of the International Red Cross with regard to the position of the population in the Falkland Islands. So far, the Argentine government has not responded to their request to visit the islands. Last night, a party of 35 people from the islands, including the Chief Secretary, arrived in Montevideo, and a report from the Chief Secretary on conditions in the islands is expected at any moment. Recently, Mr. Speaker, the government received a message from the British Community Council in Argentina urging a peaceful solution to the present conflict and asking that due consideration be given to the strong British presence in Argentina and the size of the British community there. We have replied recognizing the contribution which the British community has made to the development of Argentina, but making it plain we have a duty to respond to the unprovoked aggression against the Falkland Islands and insisting that Argentina should comply with the mandatory resolution of the Security Council calling upon it to withdraw its troops.
Before she comes to the end of her speech, I wonder if I could repeat the question about air power. Does she not remember what happened to the Prince of Wales and to the Repulse? And does she not know that there are at least 68 Skyhawks in the Argentinian Air Force, plus Mirages with the R-530s? And this is a formidable force if we are to go near the Falkland Islands. Would she at least answer that question?
Mr. Speaker, I have indicated to the honourable gentleman and to the House that we have taken steps to double the provision of the Harriers, and we believe that that will provide the air cover which the whole House and the honourable gentleman seeks. And I trust that he and the whole House will express confidence in our naval, marine and air force, because that is what they are at least entitled to have from this House. Mr. Speaker, we are also being urged from some quarters to avoid armed confrontation at all costs and to seek conciliation. Of course, we too want a peaceful solution, but it was not Britain who broke the peace. And if the argument of no force at any price were to be adopted at this stage, it would serve only to perpetuate the occupation of those very territories which have themselves been seized by force. Mr. Speaker, in any negotiations over the coming days, we shall be guided by the following principles. We shall continue to insist on Argentine withdrawal from the Falkland Islands and dependencies. We shall remain ready to exercise our right to resort to force in self-defense under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter until the occupying forces leave the islands. Our naval task force sails on towards its destination. We remain fully confident of its ability to take whatever measures may be necessary. Meanwhile, its very existence and its progress towards the Falkland Islands reinforce the efforts we are making for a diplomatic solution. That solution must safeguard the principle that the wishes of the islanders shall remain paramount. There is no reason to believe that they would prefer any alternative to the resumption of the administration which they enjoyed before Argentina committed aggression. It may be that their recent experiences will have caused their views on the future to change, but until they've had the chance freely to express their views, the British government will not assume that the islanders' wishes are different from what they were before. We have a long and proud history of recognizing the right of others to determine their own destiny. Indeed, in that respect, we have an experience unrivaled by any other nation in the world. But that right must be upheld universally, and not least where it is challenged by those who are hardly conspicuous for their own devotion to democracy and liberty. The eyes of the world are now focused on the Falkland Islands. Others are watching anxiously to see whether brute force or the rule of law will triumph. Mr. Speaker, wherever naked aggression occurs, it must be overcome. The cost now, however high, must be set against the cost we would one day have to pay if this principle went by default. And that is why, through diplomatic, economic, and if necessary through military means, we shall persevere until freedom and democracy are restored to the people of the Falkland Islands.